Hi everyone, welcome back. The plan was that I would bring you some nice pictures of William and Catherine attending the annual Royal Variety performance, but our plans are not written in stone, are they? And more often than not, our plans are not God's plan. I started feeling a little off color on Thursday, and by Friday I had proper diarrhea and nausea and an appointment to go view a house. As usual, I had a list of other things to go do in our neighboring town, but I had no choice. We literally ran through the house, which was in any event way too small for the three of us, two dogs, and a housebird. My grandson is nearly 6 foot at the age of 13, so he needs significant space between the toilet and the toilet door. Anyway, I digress. We could not do anything else. We just had to get straight back into the car. And then the tablets which I took for the nausea started kicking in, and I felt drowsy, and my daughter had to drive all the way back. Anyway, guys, everyone else is talking about Scobie's book. So if you are looking for content on that subject, you have lots to choose from. So I am going to talk to you about something different. But please hang in there because there is actually a point to all of it, and the point actually has a lot to do with Harry and Meghan. Like I said in my previous video, while the controversy of Omit's book is being talked about on social and mainstream media, and William and Catherine shone at the Royal Variety Show, King Charles made a speech at the COP28 summit. And for a change, slightly out of character for me, I actually listened to the speech and actually tried to take it in. Remember, I told you I find it hard to listen and concentrate on King Charles's speeches, and always have. He always loses me halfway through the speech, but this time I actually paused, went back, and re listened a couple of times, and eventually I made a stunning, surprising discovery. Something I think I knew all along, but just did not or could not verbalize properly. Now, I know 90% of you will click out if I say what I want to say next, so I'm going to approach it from a different angle. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quote from the King's speech. The King said, and I quote, "The hope of the world rests on climate talks taking place in the coming 2 weeks in Dubai." Now, what hope? Hope for what? In my opinion, and if I was given a wish, I would rather hope and wish that humans would stop killing each other in Gaza and Israel and Ukraine and Russia and other countries. So, unless they also discussed world peace, I honestly do not understand what he meant with this statement. And I'm being serious and not sarcastic at all. The king warned that the world was dreadfully far off track in delivering a sustainable future for the climate. Um, Now, where are the specifics? What track? Where specifically did we fail? What were the rules in the first place? Then he goes on to say, when we see the news that this last Northern Hemisphere summer, for instance, was the warmest global average temperature on record, blah, 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 we are taking the natural world outside balanced norms and limits and into dangerous, uncharted territory. Now, first and foremost, when you talk about the Northern Hemisphere, you are not talking about global, because the whole earth, our world, does not just consist out of the northern hemisphere. In any event, it is all a bit misleading because the statement is rather selective, like I said. He talks about the Northern Hemisphere, and that is not talking about global. According to NASA, the global temperature has indeed increased with an average of 1.1 degrees Celsius since 1880. Indeed, my dears, 1.1 degrees Celsius in 143 years. And when one looks at the highest temperatures ever recorded in the Northern Hemisphere, and I'm going to give both because there are indeed arguments about this, namely 56.7 degrees Celsius at Furnace Creek Ranch, California, United States of America in July 1913, or 58 degrees Celsius at Al Aziza, Libya in 1922. The current highs recorded in Europe still falls far, far short from these figures. Articles by European publications and the likes of King Charles support the global warming narrative by reporting that the June to August period was the planet's warmest in the Northern Hemisphere with an average of 16.77 degrees Celsius. With all due respect to everyone who follows this climate change narrative, 16.77 degrees Celsius is a far, far, far cry from 56.7 degrees Celsius, and you cannot keep changing your parameters of measurement to suit your narrative. Secondly, while Europe may have experienced its warmest summer since 1940, elsewhere, other countries and states and towns have experienced its coldest winter in years. So, not King Charles or anyone else can use statistics for the Northern Hemisphere to predict global warming. Therefore, when one reads articles in support of global warming, you will indeed find that it mostly and largely refer to temperatures in the Northern Hemisphere, just like King Charles did, because including the Southern Hemisphere and getting an average calculation of 1.1 degrees Celsius in 143 years, like NASA did scientifically, does not suit the business module of COP and its leaders. But before we get to that, let's get back to the King's speech. We are carrying out a vast, frightening experiment of changing every ecological condition all at once, at a pace that far outstrips nature's ability to cope. Now, I really had to stop, rewind, and re listen. What experiment? Where? By who? And what are they doing? And what does he mean by nature's ability to cope? Nature is indeed extremely adaptable. Otherwise, we would never have had any evolution among man or animal ever. Who does not have the same ability to cope is indeed mankind, where a fire can burn a landscape to black ash, and the next season it is greener than ever before. A human does not walk out of a fire unscathed or better than before. Bullets kill, bombs kill, humans kill humans, whereas nature adapts and rejuvenates itself. Nature survived COVID, humans did not. Then he goes on to say, with what we are witnessing, our choice now is starker and a darker one. How dangerous are we actually prepared to make our world, says the man who supports the World Economic Forum's suggestion that reducing the global population will solve all of the world's problems. Yes, before you guys come into the comments section, I know Jane Goodall was misquoted, but Jane Goodall wasn't the only one presenting a paper, and besides, it is a well known fact that Prince Philip was one of the first to be rather outspoken about reducing the global population. And he even got a lot of criticism for some rather flippant statements he made in this regard. So I guess we can turn the question back to the king and ask, how dangerous are you prepared to make the world to reach your idea of utopia? Then the king says that trillions of dollars will be needed to drive transformation across all facets of society required to tackle the climate crisis. And there, ladies and gentlemen, is the one word salad sentence which you need to re listen and edit or translate a little to get the true meaning, the truth. It is all, all about money. And yes, I'll get to that as well, but hang in there for me. If this video becomes too long, I'll do a part two, but for now, let's continue. The king says, in 2050, our grandchildren won't be asking what we said. They will be living with the consequences of what we did or did not do. Yes, I guess that is indeed true, but it is true in more ways than climate change, at least to a certain extent or a certain degree. In 2050, for instance, George will be 37, almost 38, and hopefully he would have been brought up to be independent and bright and strong and won't, like his Uncle Harry, blame every flaw, every drama on his parents and grandparents, but will instead carve out his own niche, take responsibility for his own actions, and will contribute his own knowledge and wisdom to society. I mean, Harry is earning his keep by blaming his parents and his grandparents for everything that has gone wrong in his life. So let's hope by 2050 George won't do that. Anyway, and then the king says, in your hands is an unmissable opportunity to keep our common hope alive. Well, with all due respect, how dare the king speak for me? He does not know what my hopes are for my children or my grandchildren, does he? And for instance, my hope is that it will never, ever, ever be necessary for any nation to ever use an atom or nuclear bomb against another. But it appears that the king has forgotten about that and is more concerned about his tan next year. And then he says, I can only urge you to meet it with ambition, imagination, and a true sense of the emergency we face. Yes, well, 1.1 degrees Celsius over 143 years does not sound like an emergency to me. I'm sorry. So, what I have discovered is that King Charles is indeed a maker of word salad speeches. And that is likely why I could never concentrate on his speeches. But despite this word salad speech, which indeed, and I'll give you all that, sounds very good on the surface, but once you dissect it like I did, it basically says very little. I mean, very, very little. It does not give specifics. It does not give statistics. It does not point to any solution whatsoever. But despite what the king may or may not have tried to say, let's look at the little bit of hypocrisy in what he didn't say. Remember the opening of Parliament this year? How the King read out new licenses for oil drilling in the North Sea. There was no direct mention of reducing reliance on oil and gas anywhere in that speech. Yes, the speech was written by and for Parliament, but that is no excuse because Rishi Sunak is also attending COP28. And guess what? Mr. Sunak, the King, and Foreign Secretary David Cameron travelled in separate private jets. Yes, you heard me right. Separate private jets to attend the Dubai talks. I'm sorry, guys. We can each decide how we want to live our lives and what we believe in. But I shall not listen or respect the opinion or advice of anyone who just talk the talk but does not walk the walk. End of story. When I travel once in a blue moon, I squeeze my ample butt in between 100 or 200 other people. Yet I am preached to by a frequent flyer of private jets? Sorry, I do not think so. Okay. Now, I hate talking too long, specifically about subjects like these, because either I start boring myself or I run out of breath. So I would rather bring you part two, in which we'll talk about the business end of the whole climate change scenario, where the money is going to, who really rules the world, and where Harry and Meghan fits into the bigger plan. So if this video bored you, the next one certainly won't. Okay, so until we meet again on that one, please take good care of yourselves. Bye.